Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Take Back My Brain. I am your host, Laurie Hammer, and today we have with us Nick Prefontaine, and I'm so excited for you to hear his story. It is one of what I want to say, limitless potential is what he talks about. He is the founder and CEO of Common Goal. He is a three-time best-selling author, top motivational speaker, but more importantly, he has a story that I really believe is going to touch your heart, rock your world, and it's going to increase your faith and your desire to move forward in life. And so that's what this podcast is going to be about. So Nick, I want to thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Lori. I've been looking forward to this.
Awesome. Awesome. I have one question before we start, and this may seem like an odd question, but maybe you've gotten this question before. Are you related to Steve Prefontaine?
Believe it or not, I get that question. I'm sure you do believe it. I get that question all the
Yeah.
time. I have an uncle named Steve who I actually just text before this show. We have a good relationship, but he's alive and well. So
Okay, very good.
no no relation that I'm aware
You're
of.
aware of? Okay. I just had to ask because it's such an uncommon name for sure.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
very, very good. So, and anyway, yeah, I'll let that go. But so tell us your story. I want to know how you got to be the founder and CEO of Common Goal. Like you have this amazing recovery story of really limitless potential. So share that with my audience.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I would love to. So my story definitely starts back in eighth grade when I was on my way to the mountain. Eighth grade, we got released a little bit early. Anytime we had ski club, which is any eighth grader's dream, not to be in school. So we got released a little bit early. My friends and I had brought our snowboard gear onto the bus so we could get ready and not miss a precious moment once we got to the mountain. And once we got to the mountain, the rest of the class headed inside, but not us. We were like, no, we're not wasting any time.
You're
So
going up to the top. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So we had a ride for the chairlift. And on the ride up, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining. So people were wiping out everywhere. And actually, the chairlift, it went right over the terrain park where all of the jumps were. And it went over the biggest jump in the terrain park. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely doing that. It has my name all over it.
Uh-huh.
So I got to the top, buckled in my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed.
Yeah.
And going up to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard on the snow going up to the jump. That's the last thing that I remember.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I went off the jump, off balance, of course, and I could not stop. So I was forced to go off it. And in the air, I rotated and landed on my head.
Oh, wow.
I later learned all different like details, nuances of this day from family, doctors, people who were there, my friends who were there.
Mhm.
And I later learned that my goggles were the only protection that my head had.
Wow.
So I had some big, thick goggles. I had a lot of padding in these goggles,
Okay.
and they were the only protection that I had. So they hit, my head hit, and then as I continued to roll and continued to hit my head, the goggles mysteriously moved to cushion each blow.
Oh,
And
wow.
I don't know about you or your listeners. However, I believe everything happens for a reason.
Me
So
too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, people will say, oh, mysteriously moved to cushion each blow, but I mean, depending on what you believe, I don't think it's that mysterious. Uh,
Right.
and several things, that was the first one, but several things about that day led me to where I am today. And the second of which was they wanted to bring a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital, and they couldn't because it was too windy. So
Okay.
they had to send in an ambulance. And out of all the paramedics in the area, Lori, there was only one who could intubate right on the spot.
Hmm.
And because of the severity of my injury, my accident, I needed that to be able to breathe.
Wow.
And lucky for me, he was the one paramedic or one of the team of paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day.
Wow. Definitely divine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I believe and what I absolutely. It's really amazing. And there are really several things about that day and about my accident that I still can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason, what I believe is part of the reason, that's part of the reason why I'm here to this day to tell this story and to spread my message of hope and of overcoming adversity. So
Right.
the third thing that happened was when I made it to the hospital, I was resting in a coma in the ICU. My parents were the only ones who were allowed in
Okay.
to my room, that is, and the doctors, as you can imagine, they're just doing their job. They walked into the room and they figured out, don't worry about him, he's in a coma, he can't hear what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So they started to share with my parents that um all like the negative things
Sure.
and what happened and the prognosis, because liability wise they can't paint a rosy picture in the best
No,
case
absolutely they
scenario.
can't. Yep, this is the reality. Yep.
Yeah, so that's what they have to do. So as they started to share, my mom stopped them and she said, no, no, not in front of him,
Mm,
because she understood that even though I was in a coma and I couldn't communicate with anyone, I was still taking in information. So she made
yeah.
the doctors step outside my room. And once they were outside my room, that's where they shared with my parents that, um, look, based on the impact alone, he probably would have been out for 7 to 10 days at a minimum.
Wow.
However, the swelling is such in his brain that we're concerned that he'll wake up and panic and worry, what are you people? Who are you people? What am I doing here? What happened? Get me out of here. And then the swelling in my brain would go up and then I would have died.
Right.
So they had to partially induce me into a coma.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in the coma for, oh, and they also shared with my parents that um look, we're not sure how long he's going to be in the coma, if he's even going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And when he comes out, there's a good chance that he's probably not going to be able to walk, talk, or eat on his own again.
Wow.
And I was in a coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month because, as I just shared, it was a partially induced coma. So I actually have seen videos of myself in the ICU when I came out of the coma. I had my eyes open. I'm looking around. I have no recollection of that.
Mm,
Um, and I've even one of the first places that I spoke at a couple of years after my accident was a groundbreaking ceremony at UMass Memorial Hospital, the hospital in Worcester, Massachusetts, where I was. And when I was there for the groundbreaking ceremony, I went back and visited the ICU, the intensive care unit where I was.
uh-huh.
And I was walking around and I was like, God, this layout, like the layout of the floor, the rooms, even the nurses and the doctors' faces, everything looks so familiar.
Mm-hmm.
However, I didn't know like how, but I was like, I feel like I know this. I know
Uh-huh.
you people and I know everyone here. That was because I was coming off of a partially induced coma.
Sure. Sure.
So because I um because I came out of this and I don't remember a month. So they say 3 weeks, I don't remember a month. After a month, I was transported to a rehab hospital in Boston. And that's where I began my journey of having to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. And
Wow.
because my mom, up until a few weeks or a month ago, I always said it was my parents. And
Uh-huh.
I was on my dad's podcast like a month ago, and he stopped me. He goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I don't want to take credit for it. That was your mom."
Mm,
So That's why it's like a little bit
You
shady.
know, and what a blessing, Nick, that your mom knew, like she knew in her mama heart, like he cannot hear these negative things because my baby's gonna come out of it. Like, I mean, that's a mama's faith that just never stops, never
Mm.
stops. I mean, I admire her for that so much. What a blessing to you.
Yeah, well, I had obviously no say in it, but
You had no say in it, but I mean,
I'm
yeah.
glad that's what happened, because what that allowed me to do, Lori, is once I was aware of my surroundings and like totally off of those drugs and like aware of my surroundings and what was going on around me, it allowed me to just get up figuratively,
Mhm.
because getting up for me, it was my first physical movement was sitting up for 8 minutes at a time in bed, in the hospital bed, with nurses supporting me for 8 minutes at a time. And after that, I'd be sweating profusely like I had just ran a marathon. So I had a lot of work. When I say getting up, I just mean like the act of starting the recovery. So what it allowed me to do is, because none of that entered my mind, whether unconsciously, subconsciously, or not, um, it allowed me to just get up and do the best I can and to keep getting better every day.
Mhm.
And it was around this time when I overheard my parents talking with my doctors and therapists. And they said, all right, what do we, and this was, I was still in a wheelchair and I couldn't talk yet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I remember them meeting with the doctors and the therapist and saying, all right, what do we need to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery? And I heard in the back of my head, no, you're gonna run out. So then running out of the hospital, and then I was able to communicate that.
Uh-huh.
And running out of the hospital became our common goal. Um, so it was at this point that I started unknowingly, I didn't know it at the time, I didn't know it for many years after that, but I unknowingly used an acronym to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital.
Mhm.
And that's the STEP system. STEP is an acronym. It stands for support. You have to make sure that you have the support of your family and friends around you. And
Yeah.
this is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback.
Mhm.
T is trust. Trust that once you take your first step, your next step is always going to be available to you.
Mm.
Follow it. And trust, this letter also has to do with trusting that calling that you have inside of yourself, because a lot of people will discount it and will say, oh no, that's not for me, or that's not realistic, or who am I to do that, like imposter syndrome and everything. But you have to tune into that, and I'll share a little bit later how that led me to what I'm doing today.
Okay.
uh so it's pretty exciting. E is energy.
Mhm.
um Maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself.
Yep.
And medication can have the potential of getting in the way of that.
Mhm.
So the way the story that goes with this is, once I came out of the partially induced coma, it was it's really funny. In the hospital, before I could walk, so I wasn't cleared to walk. However, I would always have my dad or my grandfather or an uncle, a male family member, stay with me at night.
Okay.
And whoever was staying with me, I think it was my grandfather, I couldn't get his attention to get up and help me to the bathroom so I could go to the
Yeah.
bathroom. So I got up on my own, and
Oh my
I
gosh.
I hobbled my way to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom. I hobbled my way back, went back to bed. Nothing happened. However, the hospital freaked out and was like, "He can't do that. We can't have that. What we're gonna do is give him this many cc's of this drug, this many cc's of that drug
Oh my
before
gosh.
medicine does, so it doesn't happen." And my mom, back to my mom, her insights. She goes,
No.
"You don't have to drug him. Just tell him he doesn't not to do that. Just
Right?
do
Just
that." And
communicate. Yes.
yeah, exactly. And they told me not to do that. And I didn't have a problem. I didn't do it again. And
But they were going to drug you instead of just telling you. I get it.
yeah, exactly. Just because it makes their, again, no, they're not trying to do anything malicious. It just makes
No. Yeah.
it makes their job easier. They're managing hundreds of patients.
Right.
So, finally, P is persistence. Once you take your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step. And especially at the beginning of your recovery, you have to be doing something, or you're going to want to be doing something every day. Like, I'm talking the first 60, 90 days, like intensively. You have to be doing something every day. I'm not talking about 12 or 13-hour days, just something.
Hmm.
Because doing something every day is going to allow you to build an unstoppable momentum.
Okay.
So if you fast forward a little bit, less than 60 days later, after coming out of the coma and being at the rehab hospital, I realized my goal and I ran out of the hospital.
That is amazing, Nick.
Thank you. And really, I mean, it's not like there was a ticker tape parade. It was, the work was done at that point. I
Uh-huh.
still had to go to outpatient therapy for another 6 months,
Yeah.
along with being tutored all summer long in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. So it was work. It was definitely work. I'll take a breath there, Laurie, if you have any questions. Just so
This is an amazing, amazing story. Like one of such intense perseverance, not just on your part, but your parents' part, for everybody to come into that common goal. Like, did you ever hear anybody say, like, well, Nick, why don't we just focus on maybe like walking out of here and not running out of here? Or did anybody try to discourage you in that aspect?
I mean, not how not how you're describing it. And at least to me, in my 14-year-old mind, I still looking back and I don't think it's a big deal, just because it's, yeah, okay, it's something that happened to me when I was 14, and I got up and did the best I could, and anyone would do that in that situation. But people tell me, including my mentor, they say to me, well, who is the one who helped me develop the step system? She
Uh-huh.
said, uh, no, Nick, that's not normal. Like,
No.
there was an ability to give up, to quit. However, that never entered my mind. And the the thing that I'm more proud of than that is, and I think that's where I had the naysayers and the doubt, and I want to talk about. So after doing that, I got into real estate.
Okay.
Like, I got my real estate license after I graduated high school. March of 2008. I know you're probably thinking a great time to be a realtor.
Good time. Yep. Yep.
Yep, yep. So I was a I was a successful realtor for really full time for 6 years, and then in 2014, my dad came to me and asked me if I could help him with the property. He needed help with marketing the properties that he was buying as an investor, and then that morphed into helping all the buyers that were responding from the marketing. And regardless of what I've been doing, Laurie, all throughout my life, I've always had this voice in the back of my head that's been saying, yeah, that's great. Like, okay, you're being successful, you're making money, you're everything, and that's great. But what you really need to be doing is telling your story from stage and helping individuals that are going through trauma get through to the other side
Hmm.
and thrive with the rest of their lives. So in 2012, I developed a voice issue. And this is where the doubts and the naysayers come in that I want to
Okay.
talk about. So because I don't remember from my snowboard accident that there was. I was so focused every day on getting
Right.
up and doing the work.
Well, and
However,
then it could probably help that you were 14,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I developed that voice issue in 2012, and I just, at the end of 2012, I was looking everywhere. I was like, what the heck is wrong with my voice? And I couldn't figure it out. I went to all these different doctors, I went to an allergist, I went to all the doctors, and they're like, no, you're fine. All your levels are fine. But I knew something wasn't right. And I just kept looking. And I finally wound up in a voice specialist office in August of 2013.
Okay.
He walked into the room, heard me speak, and right away nonchalantly goes, "Oh, that? Yeah, we deal with that all the time. We'll get that fixed in no time. Go see
Oh,
the
okay.
yeah, go see the front desk and schedule a Botox injection in a couple weeks, and we'll get it taken care of." So I scheduled that Botox injection. Then in conjunction with getting the Botox injection, I had to work with their higher level voice specialist, their voice therapist, to kind of teach myself how to talk again. It
Oh,
was
interesting.
almost it was almost like it was hard to get the words out. Like it was like there was a lot of muscle tension going on there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And all throughout that, so I started getting them in August of 2013. I had to get them for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So the last one I had was February 13th of 2020. And I haven't, it's been 4 years and I haven't had to get another Botox injection. And anyone that meets me that says, "Oh, I would have never known there was an issue with your voice." And I say that's the biggest compliment someone can give me. Thank you so much for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was there, Lori, that I had people saying to me that, "Oh, it's not so bad. This is as good as it's gonna get. It's not gonna get any better. It's not so bad. People have it worse." And I was like, no, that's not happening. I'm not stopping. So
Right.
that comes back to the persistence, and really overcoming that and having I would have experts say to me, like people, heads of organizations, "Oh, well, I've been dealing with this for 20 plus years and it's just something you gotta live with." And I was like,
Yeah.
no, I didn't say that to him. I was
Yeah.
just in my head, I was like, no, I'm not going to stop looking for an answer and doing my voice exercises, for instance,
Right.
and improving. And one of the things that the voice specialist said to me was, "You're the only one of my last, either it was my last or my second to last injection." He said to me that you're one of the you're one of the only people that I see that's getting better and improving every time I see you. Like every time you need an injection, your voice is a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that I really want to share this. The reason that's the case is because there are so many people in this world, and it's so polarizing, that either they're 100% medicine and the medical establishment and surgeries and medication and everything, or they're 100% natural, and both camps are 100% against each other too. They think it's foolish to think the other thing can even help. But the difference in both my recovery of my snowboarding accident and getting to a place where I don't need to get Botox injections anymore, and my voice, I had to learn how to talk again,
Mm-hmm.
so twice, um, is the fact that I do both. I blended both. So I needed, after getting in my snowboarding accident, it wasn't like I could say, "Yeah, no, I don't like all the
So
medicine."
you needed that. That's what that's
Yeah,
for. Yes.
exactly. And after that, a couple years after that, I started seeing a naturopath to rid my body of the toxins and getting treatments every week or two. But that's like, because I did both, I was successful. And then with the voice issue, it was the reason I was seeing improvement is each time between those Botox injections, I would be getting treatments. I'd be getting like craniosacral massage, myofascial release.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same practitioner, depending on what she felt my body needed at that time. Trina massage from a energy healer that I still see, that I just saw last week. I get those treatments once every 4 or 5 weeks, and that's the reason that I was able to um get my voice back. And it took 8 years, but that's the whole reason. Um, without both of them, that wouldn't have been possible.
Right. Well, I think you say something really key there, Nick, that it took you 8 years to get your voice back. And, your whole story is one about perseverance, right? And sticking to the goal and knowing that you're called to share your story, you're called to be a speaker, you have this message to take to the world. And here you have this voice issue, right? I think of, Robert Kennedy Jr., he's running for president, but he has this voice issue. It's really hard for him to talk, but yet he's still persevering and he's still, getting his message out.
The same thing.
The same thing.
I can relate to him so much because it sounds like me. Like they did videos of me, and that's how I sounded like.
That's how
Like,
you sounded.
okay,
And
so
so,
I don't have to make it like this is what that's
yeah,
Kennedy
yeah,
Jr. That's what I sounded like.
yeah.
Spasmodic
And
dysphonia.
yeah, and it took you 8 years. And so I would love to for you to speak maybe just a little bit deeper on that, because the perseverance part is really key. Because how many people are going to give up after two? Like I've tried, quote unquote, everything, and this whatever situation, this ailment, whatever, is not better. So I guess I'm just supposed to live with it. I mean, we have this like give up attitude. And
Mhm.
you haven't had that. You haven't had that. And maybe it was instilled in you when you were a little kid. Maybe your mom was the person who was instilling it in you, like, no, we're not going to have negative. We're not going to accept mediocrity. We live in a spirit of excellence around here. And because that's really what it sounds like. Like you're just not a person that would accept that, hey, this is my lot in life. Because I'm assuming you believe your lot in life is one of abundance and healing and taking that message to the world, and not one that's going to be subdued because of something that's happened to you.
Yes, and thank you for reminding me. So I was saying that that calling, I wanted to get back to it. So all throughout my life, I've had that whatever I'm doing, I've always had that calling that, yeah, okay, this is great, but what you need to be doing is telling your story from stage, speaking, and helping others that are going through trauma. So I've always had that voice, and whatever I've done, I couldn't get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
However, someone saw me speak. Yeah, you're laughing because
Yeah, because
you
it's not
probably
going
had that
away.
voice,
You have
right?
to be obedient and do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that voice it wouldn't go away. And someone saw me speak in 2019. And there are so many lessons in this story. Someone saw me speak in 2019 at one of our events. We have a real estate coaching and mentoring, like a training company. So one of our events, 2019, September, someone saw me speak. They approached me after and handed me their card and said, I'm not trying to steal you away from your dad. However, if you're ever looking to fine tune your message and so you're able to impact the most amount of people, to help the most amount of people, let me know and I can introduce you to a few people, open a few doors for you, and help you get started.
Amen.
Well, I was still in the final throes of my voice issue.
Mm-hmm.
This was September 2019. At this point, I still needed 2 more Botox treatments, believe it or not. So I got one and I had stretched it out to 5 or 6 months. I could go 5 or 6 months between injections,
Sure.
and I always would try to do it longer and longer because that was evidence to me that I was improving, that I was getting
Yep.
better.
Yep.
So I had it in I think it was the first week in October of 2019. And then in December, I could start to feel it again. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, what's
Right.
going on? So this is interesting because I was like, what is happening? And I started to get like down on like a little, there was a little like pity party for myself for like 5 seconds. I was like, I've been working at this for
Mhm.
7 years and it's like not, I'm still dealing with it. 5 minute pity party.
Uh-huh.
That's what I gave myself. And then I was like, the next day I was like, no, we have to keep going. So I called reluctantly and scheduled a Botox injection. That happened to be my last one that I needed ever. That's the last one I had. So
Crazy.
that's like the lesson in that is just keep going.
Right.
That you might be extremely frustrated, seeing no progress when you're looking back and just dealing with your lot in life, but just keep going because you don't know if you're 3 feet from goal, like from finishing it. So I
Yeah.
always hung on to her card, Sharon Spano. I hung on to her card for over a year and a half. And when I was ready in the spring, it was May of 2021, I called her and said, okay, I'm ready. Like after I knew it was out of my system, the voice issue was out of my
Yeah.
system, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't need any more treatments. And I called her and she said, all right, well, I'm gonna introduce you to my mentor, Trisha Brooke. And since I've had that call, Lori, there has been no voice in the back of my head. And I told her what I was looking to do and what my goals were. And I said, is that possible? She said, absolutely. And I said, what should I do? She said, the speaker salon in New York City in the fall. And that's when it's usually like 10 to 15 speakers. But my class was the first cohort back since COVID.
Oh,
So I think there was only 6 to 8 of us. And during that time, so I commuted to New York City for 6 weeks in a row, got to be on stage at the Triad Theater,
mm,
uh, and perform a talk with those other speakers with Trisha directing us in real time. She's an award-winning director. She's absolutely amazing.
oh,
Uh, and she, during the speaker salon, approached me and said she works with speakers to help them build out their speaker platform.
mhm.
I didn't even know what that meant. And I just knew I wanted more of her. So I just said yes. And um, she was the one who helped me start Common Goal.
Mhm.
Right. We went back and forth for weeks, writing several of my talks that I still perform to this day. My most importantly is my keynote, which I do at brain injury associations, and other organizations that are having people that deal with overcoming adversity, like Dysphonia International. So that's a 45 to 60 minute keynote that before her, the longest I spoke on stage was 25 minutes.
Sure.
Uh, so yeah, I'm really glad that I'm doing. And I had people all on the way for the voice issue. Doubt me, to answer your question. That was God. That was a long answer to your question.
That's all right. Keep going. Yeah. So can we go back to the step system? Because I think that's really important. I mean, we've talked about the perseverance part of it, but having that support system, and getting the naysayers out, just like
Mhm.
your mom did. She's like, no, we're just going to remove anything negative out of that room so that nothing touches him in that manner. And especially as we're adults now, we have the power to do that. As kids, you're kind of at the mercy there a little bit, but as adults, we have that power to keep those naysayers out. We have the power to not associate with people who aren't going in the same direction with us. I would love to just speak, like, why is that so important? So why is that, step number one of your step system?
It's really interesting because the more that I dug down on this, and Trisha asked me when we started working together, this was in January of 2022. She asked me, okay, you got in your accident, you were in a coma for 3 weeks, and then you ran out of the hospital 60 days later. How'd you do it? And I said, well, I don't know. I just got up and just kept working, just worked every day toward and did what they asked of me. And
Mhm.
she said, no, no, that's not good enough. And she did this for 7 or 8 iterations to the point where she had me frustrated with her. And I like yelled. I was like, I don't know. Like, stop asking me. I need to just let that go for a little bit and maybe it'll come back to me. But she really had me drill down in what it was I did. And there's a reason the more and more after we laid it out, it came up with the step system. Um, there's a reason that, and I saw this reflecting back on it, that S is first, support, because you have to make sure that you have the support of your family and friends around you. Now, a lot of people get hung up on this. They'll get hung up on the word family and say,
Mhm.
"Oh, I don't have I don't have family." Like, oh, easy for you. You have a great family. Like you have great parents that
Right.
protected you and everything like that. It's not just family, Lori.
Yep.
It's friends, coworkers, people that are around you, neighbors, that
Mhm.
are always, and this is something I talk about in the step system, which I'm going to give away at the end to your listeners. This what we've covered is only a 10,000 foot view, but each one of these has like bullet points that I teach either from stage or in this ebook. So one of the first bullet points of support is you have to make sure that you have an advocate. Um,
Yes.
so as I said, my mom was my advocate during the day, and then my dad or like a male family member was an advocate for me at night with me at all times. And I just think that's so important, and it's so important to get that set up first.
Mhm.
Have your advocate and everyone on your side. Everyone has the ability to identify who their advocate is, and that's something going deeper. That's something you even talk about in the step video series,
Right.
which is the only product I have right now at this point, and that's $37. And it helps people identify what their support, trust, energy, and persistence are.
Mhm.
Uh, which that like you can find out about that later. But the most important thing is Step, the ebook that you could download for free. Uh,
Mhm.
so support is so important, and you have to make sure you're doing that first and getting that set up. Then once you have your support set up, you can trust that taking your first step, your next step is always going to be available to you. And there's a reason that trust is next. And then after that is energy. Maintaining your energy. Like to this day, I still maintain my energy. And all these treatments that I get, it's really energy. That's all I call it, is energy. By doing that, support, trust, and energy, I'm able to persist. I'm able to keep the persistence up and keep
Mhm.
getting up every day and taking that next step. So
Right.
they're all important, and they all need to be, you need to follow all of them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It kind of reminds me of the story of Joshua in the Bible. They're going into the promised land, and they all had to be of one mind, right? They all had to be of one mind. They had to trust that the Lord had already gone before them and given him the victory, right? So they had to take that next step. And so he said, wherever you place your foot, I have already given you victory, but you still had to take the next step. They still had to go get the victory. They still had to win all of those battles, but knowing that if they persisted, then everything that God promised to them would be theirs. And I think applying that, relating that to your story, is that's what you've done. Like, you knew that you had a promise, you knew you've had this calling inside of you this whole time. And taking those steps, I mean, you've had a lot of adversity to overcome, like things like, I can't wait to see, where else, what else you do in this life, because you've had so many things come against you. Like, there is a huge message and an impact that your life is going to have, because you've had to overcome some pretty darn extensive things, but you kept taking territory. Like, you've never stopped taking territory, Nick. And I just want you to know how much I admire that. And it's such a testimony to everybody who's listening, and to myself. It's such an encouragement to not stop taking, because there is that victory there for us. We just keep walking in that victory, knowing that it's already been won for us. You just take the next step. Your story is amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, Lori. I've said this to friends, family members, my mentor even recently, is that yeah, it's been 3 years since I no, wait a minute, it hasn't. It's only been 2 years since I like started this common goal and everything. But in my mind, 3 years, because it all the wheels were in motion, that I needed to reach out to that person that introduced me to Trisha and everything like that started about 3 years ago. So it was 3 years ago that I started this journey. However, I can't shake the feeling that I'm just getting started. So
Yeah,
I appreciate you saying that. And there are so many with my story and my journey and like what I've been through. There are so many parallels to the Bible that, like you were saying, like religion. And it's really, I'm learning more and more. And I think that, like, we're all put in this earth for a reason, and finding that is the hardest part. I think it's more than half the battle, and I feel like I've found it,
right.
uh, which is, to me, means the world to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So where can people find you? And it's going to be in the show notes, everyone, but I would love for you to share what you have available for people and how they can get in touch with you and all those kind of things.
Sure. So, like I said, the step system, how to download that whole system for free. Go to nickprefontaine.com/step, and that's going to teach you all about support, trust, energy, and persistence. And a lot of people, they're on their journey. They do feel like they're stuck and they don't know where to start, what that first step is going to be. That's going to be a great first step for anyone. That's Doesn't matter if you're going through you're just starting your journey on a life challenge, trauma, adversity, or you're starting a new business, or anything.
Right.
um it really can apply to anything, any kind of adversity.
I love it. I love it. What would you like to leave the listeners with? Your final thoughts?
Sure. Once Now, the hardest step can be the first step. However, once you take your first step, your next step is always going to be available to you, um, as long as you trust it. So take your first step today.
All right. I love it. It's good advice because if you don't take the first one, you can't take the second one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Steve or Nick, thank you so much for sharing your story today. It's been very powerful and I know the listeners have really enjoyed it and I have too. So thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for giving me the time to share my message with the listeners. It means a lot.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening and I will see you in the next episode.